My name is Audrey, and I'm 28 years old. I still remember that day as clearly as if it just happened. The day my legs went numb from the waist down. The day my brother Jason stood over me, laughing at a cruel prank, while I lay motionless on the concrete. The day my father shouted, "Walk it off. Stop being dramatic." And my mother accused me of ruining Jason's birthday. They had no idea their dismissal of my pain would soon put them in serious legal trouble. If you've ever had your suffering ignored by the people who should care most, let me know where you're watching from. Hit like, subscribe, and stay for the story of how my family's betrayal changed my life forever. Growing up in the Matthews household felt like walking on eggshells. From the outside, we looked perfect. A beautiful suburban home in Massachusetts. A successful accountant, father, a homemaker, mother, and 2 children excelling in school. But appearances were deceiving. My father, Douglas Matthews, was a 6'2" wall of stoicism who believed emotions were weakness. Raised by a strict military father, he carried forward the idea that pain was simply weakness, leaving the body a toxic belief he passed to his children, especially his firstborn, Jason. "Audrey, you need to toughen up," was my father's refrain throughout my childhood. Whether I had a scraped knee, a broken heart, or a genuine illness, his answer was always the same: minimize it, dismiss it, move on. My mother, Eleanor, wasn't much better. While she could be warm in rare moments, her loyalty was always to my father and Jason. She was nervous and fearful of upsetting the household's fragile balance. If acknowledging my pain risked that balance, she'd choose denial. "Your brother would never complain about something like that," she'd say, making comparisons that stung far deeper than any bruise. Then there was Jason, 3 years older than me, now 31, the golden child. Athletic, charming, and manipulative. He learned early that as long as he kept up appearances for our parents, he could get away with anything. I remember being 7, Jason 10, when he pushed me off my bike, breaking my wrist. He told our parents I fell because I was clumsy, and they believed him instantly. At the hospital, my father scolded me for being careless while my mother fretted over the bills. The possibility Jason was lying never crossed their minds. This pattern continued into adulthood. Jason's pranks often crossed into cruelty, and our parents either ignored them or blamed me. At 12, he locked me in the basement during a thunderstorm, knowing I feared the dark. When I told my parents, they said I was making up stories for attention. At 16, he sabotaged my science project the night before it was due, and I failed. My parents said I should have been more prepared. By adulthood, I kept my distance. I moved out at 18 for college in another state, coming home only for major holidays. I built a life as an elementary school teacher, surrounded myself with friends who cared, and started therapy to address the damage. Still, family ties are hard to break. Guilt and obligation always pulled me back. So, when my mother insisted I attend Jason's 31st birthday party, I reluctantly agreed. "It would mean so much to your brother," she said, though I doubted he cared. "We're having a backyard barbecue, and your father's setting up the new pool deck. Everyone will be there." By everyone, she meant Jason's friends, most just as obnoxious and entitled as he was. The thought of spending the day with them made my stomach turn, but I had no more excuses. "Fine, I'll be there," I said, already regretting it. "Wonderful, and please, dress nicely. You know how important appearances are to your father." It stung. She knew I'd recently adopted a more casual style, swapping preppy clothes for ones I actually felt comfortable in. In our household, even small acts of self-expression were treated as defiance. I planned to show up, make small talk, hand Jason a generic card with some cash, and leave quickly. I didn't know it would be the last day I'd walk without help, that Jason's casual cruelty would finally go too far, or that my parents' refusal to take my pain seriously would cross the line into criminal neglect. I packed an overnight bag, booking a hotel instead of staying in my childhood room, a small but important boundary. I chose dark jeans, a blue blouse, and comfortable flats, neat enough to pass my father's inspection but still me. Driving the 2 hours to their house, I practiced my therapist's coping techniques, deep breathing, visualization, reminding myself I could leave if things became too much, but no amount of mental preparation could ready me for what was about to happen. I arrived right at 2 p.m., the official start time, to avoid one-on-one time with my family. The driveway was full of expensive cars, mostly belonging to Jason's friends. I spotted the red Corvette of Tyler. Jason's best friend and a childhood accomplice in tormenting me. My mother greeted me with an air kiss and a quick once-over. My outfit passed inspection, barely. Audrey, you made it. Everyone's out. Bafta brother just opened his presents. They hadn't waited for me. A subtle reminder that my presence was tolerated, not valued. The living room was piled with extravagant gifts, golf clubs, designer clothes, and what looked like vehicle keys. We got him that jet ski he's been wanting, my mother said proudly, showing me a photo of it. My father was having it delivered next week. For my own 30th birthday 6 months earlier, I'd received a department store gift card. The inequality was nothing new, but it still hurt. I set my Modus card with $200 on the table and followed my mother outside. The backyard looked exactly as expected. About 30 men in their early 30s drinking beer on the new pool deck. My father was at the grill, flipping burgers and steaks, like a suburban pro. Jason was near the pool, surrounded by his usual entourage, holding a beer and telling some exaggerated story. He'd put on weight since I last saw him, his athletic build giving way to a softer frame. When he spotted me, he approached with forced enthusiasm. "Little sis, you decided to grace us with your presence." His words sounded friendly, but his eyes said otherwise. He hugged me too tightly, the aggression unmistakable. "Happy birthday, Jason," I replied, pulling away quickly. "The place looks great." "Dad spent a fortune on that deck," he said, gesturing to it. "Custom Brazilian hardwood, nearly 20 grand. Again, the unspoken comparison hung in the air for Jason. Nothing was too expensive. For me, even small requests were burdens. I excused myself for a drink, choosing water over alcohol, to keep my guard up. For the next hour, I avoided direct interaction with my family by chatting politely with other guests, mostly spouses and girlfriends who seemed as uneasy as I was. We formed a quiet alliance of outsiders, but as the afternoon wore on and the alcohol flowed, the mood began to shift. Jason and his friends grew louder, their behavior more obnoxious that they began reminiscing about high school, trading stories that always seemed to involve ridiculing someone they considered beneath them. Predictably, Jason's focus shifted to me. "Hey, remember when we convinced Audrey the neighbor's dog had rabies?" He called out loudly enough for everyone to hear. She was so scared she wouldn't go outside for a week. Laughter erupted from his friends. My cheeks burned with that familiar mix of embarrassment and anger. I'd been 8 when Jason and his friends told me the friendly Labrador next door was dangerous and would attack me. The fear had been real, so were the nightmares that followed. Or, the time we swapped her shampoo with hair removal cream, Tyler added, slapping his knee as though cruelty were comedy gold. That prank happened when I was 14. My hair had grown back in uneven patches, forcing me to wear hats to school for weeks. My parents told me I was being overly dramatic. I took a deep breath and began gathering my things. I'd reached my limit. No family obligation was worth enduring this kind of humiliation. But as I turned to leave, Jason stepped in front of me. "Leaving already? The party's just getting started." His words slurred, eyes unfocused. He was drunk, which only made him more unpredictable. "I've got a long drive back," I said firmly, trying to step around him. He blocked me again. "Come on, sis, loosen up. Have a drink for old time's sake." I knew this pattern, forced camaraderie followed by public humiliation. I'd fallen for it too often before. "No thanks, Jason, I really need to go." His expression hardened, the fake friendliness giving way to something sharper. Still the same, uptight Audrey. Some things never change. I walked toward the sliding glass door to grab my purse, say a quick goodbye to my parents, and escape. But fate or Jason's malice had other plans. To reach the house, I had to cross part of the new pool deck. The moment I stepped on the boards, something felt off. The surface was oddly slick beneath my flats. Glancing down, I noticed a faint sheen, barely visible unless you were looking for it. My stomach sank. I knew what was about to happen, but it was too late. My foot shot forward, throwing me off balance. I tried to steady myself, but the slipperiness was complete deliberate. My other foot slipped, and I felt myself falling backward. Time slowed. I saw Jason and his friends watching, their faces lit with cruel anticipation. My father turned from the grill. My mother paused mid-conversation, then impact my lower back and head struck the concrete pool edge at the same time. sending sharp pain up my spine and a burst of light behind my eyes. A scream tore out of my only later would. I realized it was mine. My vision blurred and spun until finally I was staring up at the cloudless sky. My head throbbed, but worse, I couldn't feel anything below my waist. Help, I gasped, my voice barely audible. Please help me, I can't feel my legs. The first face in view was Jason's, grinning. Nice pratfall, sis, very dramatic. He turned to his friends. She was always a theater kid. I tried to sit up, my arms worked, but my legs didn't respond. I'm serious, I said, panic sharpening my voice. Something's wrong. I can't move my legs. I think I hit my back. Jason rolled his eyes. Come on, get up. You're embarrassing yourself. I can't get up. Tears blurred my vision. Please call an ambulance. I think I'm really hurt. A crowd had gathered, their expressions a mix of curiosity and discomfort. No one moved to help. They were taking cues from Jason. My father pushed through, irritation on his face. What's going on, Audrey? Why are you on the ground? Relief washed over me. Dad, I slipped. I hit my back. I can't feel my legs. I need to go to the hospital. I expected urgency. Instead, he scoffed. The deck's perfectly safe. I had it installed by professionals. Walk it off. Stop being a babyer, making a scene at your brother's party. The words hit harder than the fall. Douglas, maybe we should help her up, my mother said, stepping beside him, but her tone wasn't concern, just awareness. Of the watching guests. I can't get up, I repeated, desperation creeping in. I need an ambulance. Please, Mom, please. She crouched beside me, lowering her voice to a sharp whisper. Audrey Matthews, enough. You've always been jealous of your brother's attention. But this is too far. You're ruining his birthday. The pain in my back intensified, radiating outward. My head pounded and nausea surged. I think I'm going to be sick, I moaned, turning my head. She's probably drunk, Jason announced. Classic Audrey can't handle her alcohol. I hadn't had a drop, but facts never mattered in my family's version of events. The sun's heat worsened my nausea. Sweat dripped, and tingling began in my fingertip, signs I feared were serious. Please, I whispered. I need help. My father walked back to the grill. My mother told guests I had episodes, and urged them to keep enjoying themselves. Jason returned to his friends, chatting about taking out the new jet ski. I lay there, alone in agony, surrounded by people who refused to see me. The betrayal was worse than the pain. Then, a voice cut through. Excuse mime, a nurse, let me through. The crowd parted, and a woman knelt beside me. She had calm eyes and steady hands. Hi, I'm Rachel. I work in the ER at Massachusetts General. Can you tell me your name? Audrey, I managed. I felt cold despite the heat. Okay, Audrey, don't move. What happened? I explained about the fall and losing sensation in my legs. Rachel's face stayed neutral, but I caught the concern in her eyes. She checked points on my legs, asking if I could feel anything. I couldn't. She told me to wiggle my toes. Nothing. I'm calling an ambulance, she said, pulling out her phone. She doesn't need one. My mother objected. She just needs to get up. Rachel met her with a steady look. Ma'am, your daughter shows signs of a spinal cord injury. Moving her could cause permanent damage. She needs emergency care now. For the first time, my mother's face flickered with concern. That's impossible, she just slipped. Falls are one of the leading causes of spinal injuries, Rachel replied. Already speaking to 911. My father approached, now uneasy. What's this about an ambulance? Rachel raised a hand while finishing with the dispatcher, then turned to him. Sir, your daughter may have a serious spinal injury. Paramedics will be here in 10 minutes. She must not be moved. His face paled. How did this happen? Through the fog of pain, I spoke. The deck was slippery like oil was on it. That's ridiculous, he said. It was sealed yesterday. It shouldn't be slippery. Rachel bent to inspect the boards, touching the surface and rubbing her fingers together. This isn't water. This feels like a lubricant. All eyes went to Jason. His alcohol-flushed face drained of color. It was just a joke, he muttered. I used some of Dad's deck oil on a few boards. I thought she might slip into the pool. I didn't think. He stopped. The reality sinking in. The silence was heavy. Lying there, I saw my family for what they were: casual cruelty, willful blindness, and constant protection of Jason, no matter the harm. This time, though, there would be consequences. Sirens grew louder. In the distance, Rachel stayed beside me, monitoring my pulse, keeping others back. Stay calm, she said softly. Help is almost here. Focus on your breathing. I tried, but panic threatened to take over. The numbness below my waist was terrifying. Pain pulsed through my back and head, nausea rising. Guests drifted away, some leaving entirely, others watching from a distance with uneasy curiosity. My mother lingered, fussing with her clothes and hair. Do you really think this is necessary? She asked Rachel. Maybe we could just take her to urgent care. Rachel's tone was unyielding. Absolutely not. She needs proper immobilization and transport. Any wrong movement could worsen a spinal injury. My father had gone to the front of the house to guide the paramedics, while Jason stood motionless a few feet away, the weight of what he had done finally seeming to register. The paramedics arrived quickly, two women and a man in uniform, pushing a stretcher through the gate into the backyard. Rachel immediately briefed them on my condition and how I had fallen. The lead paramedic, whose name tag reads Sarah, knelt beside me. Hello, Audrey. I'm Sarah. We'll take good care of you. Can you tell me where the pain is worst? My lower back, I managed to say, and my head, but I can't feel anything below my waist. Sarah nodded, her expression calm but concerned. We're going to place a cervical collar on you to support your neck, then carefully roll you onto a backboard. It's important you don't try to move, stay as still as possible. As they worked, Sarah asked questions about the fall, whether I'd lost consciousness, and how it had happened. Rachel filled in the details about my vitals and her initial assessment. Then Sarah asked something that shifted the situation entirely. Was the surface where you fell naturally slippery, or was there something on it? Before I could respond, Rachel answered. There's some kind of oil or lubricant on the deck boards. I believe it was put there on purpose. Sarah paused, looking up sharply. On purpose? Can you explain? Her brother admitted to putting deck oil on the boards as a prank, Rachel said evenly, though her voice carried an edge. He intended for her to slip. Sarah and the other paramedics exchanged glances. She turned to Jason, who was standing with his hands in his pockets, staring at the ground. Sir, is that correct? Did you deliberately create a slipping hazard that caused this injury? Jason shifted uncomfortably. It was just supposed to be a joke. I didn't think she'd get hurt like this. Sarah's tone hardened. She addressed her colleague, Mike. Please check the deck surface and document your findings. Mike nodded, examining the area, taking photos, and collecting a sample of the substance. Meanwhile, the team worked efficiently to immobilize me. They secured a rigid collar around my neck, then positioned themselves to roll me in unison onto the backboard. On my count, Sarah instructed. 1, 2, 3. They moved me with precision, but the shift sent sharp pain through my body. I cried out, despite trying to stay silent. I know it hurts, Sarah said gently. We'll give you pain relief as soon as you're secured. Once strapped to the backboard, they lifted me onto the stretcher and connected monitoring equipment. Sarah placed an oxygen mask over my face and inserted an IV line. Your blood pressure is quite low, she noted, frowning at the monitor, and your heart rate is high. We need to get you to the hospital immediately. My mother finally seemed to understand the seriousness. Is she going to be okay? She asked softly. Sarah didn't offer false comfort. She shows signs of a significant spinal injury. The sooner we get her to a trauma center, the better her chances. Mike returned from inspecting the deck and quietly showed Sarah something on his camera. Her face grew more serious. Based on what I'm seeing here and what's been described, I'm requesting police assistance, she announced. Police, my father said, returning from the front yard. That's not necessary. This was just an accident. Sarah met his gaze evenly. Sir, intentionally creating a hazardous condition that results in serious injury is not an accident, and there was a delay in calling for help, despite clear signs of a medical emergency. My father's face reddened. Now wait, just a minute. You can't come into my home and Dad, I interrupted weakly from behind the oxygen mask. Please, just let them help me. For once, he stayed silent. Sarah called for police on her radio, then turned back to me. We're going to move you to the ambulance now. The ride may be uncomfortable, but we'll keep you stable. As they wheeled me through the house, I caught one last look at my family, my father arguing with Mike, my mother hugging herself, and Jason standing exactly where he'd been, watching as the consequences of his actions unfolded. The ambulance, doors closed just as a police cruiser pulled into the driveway, lights flashing but sirens off. Despite the pain and fear, I felt an unfamiliar sense of validation. Someone was finally taking my suffering seriously. The ambulance carried me away from the toxic environment that had caused me so much pain. As the medication dulled my agony, I closed my eyes and slipped into unconsciousness. I awoke to the steady beeping of hospital monitors and the sterile scent of antiseptic. For a moment I was disoriented. Then the memories came flooding back. The fall, the numbness, the paramedics, and the police at my parents' house. A nurse noticed I was awake and came to my bedside. "Welcome back, Audrey. I'm Carlos. You're at Massachusetts General Hospital. Do you remember what happened?" "I fell," I said, my voice raspy, "at my brother's birthday party. I couldn't feel my legs." "That's right," he confirmed, making a note in my chart. "You've been in and out for about 12 hours. The doctor will be in shortly. Can I get you some water?" I nodded, and he helped me sip through a straw. Even that small movement sent pain through my back. "What's wrong with me?" I asked, fear edging my voice. "I still can't move my legs." Carlos's expression was kind but professional. "The doctor will explain. She should be here any moment. Try to stay calm." Right on cue, a woman in a white coat entered. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled into a neat bun. "Good morning, Audrey. I'm Dr. Martinez, the neurosurgeon overseeing your care. How are you feeling?" "Scared," I admitted, "and in pain." "Why can't I feel my legs?" Dr. Martinez sat beside me. "When you fell, you sustained an incomplete spinal cord injury at the T12L1 junction in your lower back. The impact fractured two vertebrae and compressed your spinal cord." She showed me MRI images on a tablet, pointing to the damage. "We performed emergency surgery to remove bone fragments, relieve the pressure, and stabilize your spine with rods and screws." "Will I walk again?" I asked, dreading the answer. "Spinal cord injuries vary greatly," she explained. "The fact that yours is incomplete is encouraging. It means the cord wasn't fully severed. We'll know more over the next few months as you heal and work with physical therapy, so I might be paralyzed permanently." "I wouldn't use that word yet," she replied. "But yes, you currently have paraplegia, paralysis of the lower limbs. We'll focus on maximizing your recovery, but you should prepare for the possibility of long-term mobility challenges." Her words hit like a blow. I had gone to my brother's birthday as a healthy 28-year-old, and was leaving with a life injury, all because of a prank and my family's refusal to take my pain seriously. "There's another matter," Dr. Martinez continued. "The circumstances of your injury have prompted an investigation. 2 police officers are here to speak with you when you're ready." "My brother put oil on the deck," I said. He admitted it. He thought it would be funny if I slipped. Dr. Martinez nodded. "That matches what the paramedics reported. There's also concern about the delay in getting you medical care. My parents didn't believe I was hurt. They told me to walk it off, said I was being dramatic and trying to ruin Jason's party." A flicker of anger crossed her otherwise composed face. "With suspected spinal injuries, immediate immobilization is critical. Delays can make the outcome far worse." "Are you saying that if they'd called right away, I might not be paralyzed?" "It's impossible to say for certain," she answered carefully. "But yes, generally, the sooner the treatment, the better the prognosis. Every minute counts." Tears welled in my eyes as the weight of it all sank in. The injury itself was devastating, but realizing it might have been less severe if my family had believed me added another layer of betrayal I wasn't prepared for. Dr. Martinez gave me a moment to collect myself before asking, "Do you feel ready to speak with the police now? Or would you prefer to rest first?" "I'll talk to them," I decided. "I want them to know what happened." She nodded and went to get the officers. Carlos stayed behind, gently adjusting my position for comfort and offering tissues for my tears. The 2 officers who entered were women, which made me feel a bit safer. They introduced themselves as Detective Sullivan and Officer Chen, explaining they were investigating the circumstances of my injury. "We understand this is difficult," Detective Sullivan began, "but we need to ask you about what happened yesterday." I explained everything I could remember. Arriving at the party, Jason's increasingly aggressive behavior, my attempt to leave, the fall on the slippery deck, and most importantly, my family's response afterward. "To be clear," Detective Sullivan asked, "after you fell and said you couldn't feel or move your legs, no one called for medical help?" "Not until Rachel, the nurse at the party, intervened," I confirmed. "That was at least 15 or 20 minutes later. My father told me to walk it off, and my mother accused me of trying to ruin Jason's birthday. Officer Chen, who had been taking notes, looked up and your brother admitted to putting oil on the deck. Yes, he said it was meant as a prank so I'd slip into the pool. He didn't expect me to hit the concrete edge. The officers exchanged glances. We should let you know, Detective Sullivan said. We've already taken statements from witnesses, including Rachel, Cooper and the paramedics. We've also collected evidence from the deck confirming oil was present where you fell. She paused before continuing. Your brother, Jason Matthews, was taken into custody last night on charges of reckless endangerment causing serious bodily harm. Your parents, Douglas and Eleanor Matthews, are under investigation for negligence and failing to provide necessary medical aid. The news stunned me. As much as they had hurt me, I had never imagined my family facing criminal charges. They could go to jail, I asked quietly. That's up to the district attorney and the courts, Detective Sullivan replied. But these are serious charges, especially given your injuries. They asked a few more questions, thanked me for my cooperation, and promised to keep me updated. After they left, I lay in bed trying to process everything. The physical impact of my injury was overwhelming, but the legal and emotional implications were just as staggering. No one from my family had called or visited. I didn't know if that was because of legal restrictions or simply their lifelong pattern of avoiding responsibility. As evening came, a hospital social worker named Marcus arrived. He explained he would coordinate my care plan, including rehabilitation, options and resources for adjusting to life with a spinal cord injury. You're looking at a long recovery, he told me gently. Once you leave acute care, you'll likely spend weeks in inpatient rehab, followed by outpatient therapy. I live alone, I said, the reality hitting me. My apartment has stairs. I teach elementary school, so I'm on my feet all day. Marcus nodded. We'll help you navigate these challenges. There are resources for home modifications, job adjustments, and disability benefits. I know it's a lot right now. It was, in less than 24 hours, my body, my home, my career, and my family relationships had all changed. That night, alone in my hospital room, I cried for everything I had lost and everything uncertain ahead. But under the grief, a spark of determination emerged. I had survived years of my family's emotional abuse. Somehow, I would survive this too. And this time, they would face consequences. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of surgeries, pain management, and early rehabilitation. Dr. Martinez explained that surgery had stabilized my spine and relieved pressure on the cord, but significant damage remained. You have what we call Asia C-level classification, she told me. You've preserved some motor function below the injury, but it's not strong enough to be fully functional. You also have some sensory preservation, which is encouraging. I had begun regaining sensation in my thighs and occasional tingling in my lower legs. But I still had no voluntary movement below my knees and minimal strength in my hips and thighs. The legal side of things added another layer of stress. 10 days after my injury, Assistant District Attorney Laura Jensen visited me. The investigation is complete, she said. Based on the evidence, we've filed formal charges. Jason faces felony reckless endangerment, with a possible sentence of up to 10 years. Your parents are charged with criminal negligence and failing to provide medical aid, which could mean up to 5 years if convicted. She explained these were maximum penalties and that actual sentences would depend on factors, like their lack of prior criminal history and whether they pleaded guilty. She also told me I had the right to file a civil lawsuit for damages, noting that spinal cord injuries can cost millions over a lifetime. The thought was overwhelming. I wanted to cut ties completely, but the financial reality was unavoidable. Laura connected me with Michael Greenberg, a personal injury attorney specializing in spinal cord cases. After reviewing my file, Michael said, "Your case is strong. Liability is clear, especially with your brother admitting he created the hazard. Their homeowner's insurance may cover some damages, but to fully protect your future, we'd also need to pursue personal assets." It was an uncomfortable thought, but Michael reminded me, this isn't about revenge, it's about securing the resources you need for independence. I agreed to proceed. 2 weeks after my injury, I was transferred to a specialized rehabilitation center with a full team of therapists and support staff. My primary physical therapist, David, combined optimism with practical goals. Our aim is to maximize any function you regain, he said. Equally important is learning to be independent with the function you have now. Days were filled with physical therapy in the mornings, occupational therapy in the afternoons, and group sessions with other patients. One patient, Tara, had been injured in a car accident 2 years earlier. She told me, "It gets easier. Eventually, your injury becomes just one part of who you are, not your whole identity." Her words gave me hope. Progress came in small victories, between parallel bars, feeling flickers of sensation, mixed with setbacks like infections and discouragement. That my family never contacted me. My attorney said their lawyers had advised against it. I felt both relief and abandonment. Thankfully, friends and colleagues filled the gap with visits, meals, and a fundraising campaign. 3 months in, the criminal cases neared resolution. Jason took a plea deal, 5 years, with 2 in prison and 3 on probation. My parents accepted probation, community service, and counseling. The civil case took longer. Michael deposed each family member, forcing them to acknowledge their actions under oath. 6 months later, we reached a settlement, $1 million from insurance plus $2 million from selling their home and retirement funds to create a care trust for me. It was enough for immediate medical costs, apartment modifications, and financial security as I considered my future, but no amount could replace what I had lost physically or emotionally. By 8 months after the injury, my medical team said I had made significant progress, though my life would never be the same. My medical team considered my progress significant. I had regained enough leg function that, with specialized braces and a walker, I could take short, careful steps. It wasn't natural walking, not the effortless movement I once took for granted, but it was more than many with similar injuries achieved. After completing inpatient rehabilitation, I continued outpatient therapy 3 times a week. I moved back into my apartment, now adapted with ramps, wider doorways, and an accessible bathroom. A part-time caregiver helped with tasks I couldn't yet manage alone. At the same time, I began rethinking my career. Returning to classroom teaching didn't seem possible, so the school district offered me a curriculum specialist role work I could mostly do from home with occasional school visits. Alongside physical recovery, I was working on emotional healing with Claire, a therapist specializing in trauma and family dynamics. This wasn't just a physical injury, she told me. It's the result of a lifetime of emotional abuse and neglect. She reminded me that while my paralysis was visible, there were deeper, unseen wounds. With her guidance, I confronted not only the trauma of the injury but also long-standing family patterns, the constant invalidation, the golden child and scapegoat roles between Jason and me, and my parents' focus on appearances over my well-being. They had one job, Claire said, to protect and care for you. Instead, they harmed you and denied it. Accepting this truth was painful, but freeing. It helped me realize that, devastating as the injury was, it also removed me from the toxic family system that had caused me years of suffering. During one session, Claire asked if I thought reconciliation was possible. I wasn't sure. Part of me believed there was no going back. Another part wondered if legal consequences might finally push them to face reality. She reminded me that my healing didn't depend on their acknowledgement, it was something I did for myself. And slowly, I began to heal not just my body, but also my sense of self and understanding of what healthy relationships should be. Approaching the first anniversary of my injury, I received an unexpected letter from Jason, sent from prison. It sat on my table for 3 days before I opened it. Inside was a long, handwritten apology, the first real one I'd ever received from him. He described the therapy he was undergoing, admitted the harm he had caused, and offered no excuses. He didn't ask for forgiveness, only to acknowledge the pain he'd caused throughout our lives. I had mixed feelings. While his words seemed genuine, I wasn't ready to let him back into my life if I ever would. Still, his acknowledgement offered a measure of closure. My parents never contacted me, though I heard they had moved to Florida and started over in a smaller home after the settlement. I focused on building a new life different from what I'd imagined, more challenging in many ways, but filled with new meaning. Friends who had stood by me became my chosen family. The disability advocacy community gave me purpose and belonging I had never felt in my biological family. Over time, I found a resilience I hadn't known existed, the ability not just to survive trauma but to grow from it. 2 years have passed since that day at my brother's birthday party, a day when a cruel prank and my family's indifference changed my life forever. In that time, I've undergone surgeries, rehabilitation, and deep emotional work. My life now is entirely different. I live in a ground floor, fully accessible apartment. I drive a car with hand controls. I work remotely most days and visit schools several times a month to train teachers on the curriculum I've developed. Physically, my doctors call my progress remarkable. With leg braces and forearm crutches, I can walk short distances, though I still rely on a wheelchair most of the time. I've regained sensation in about 60% of my lower body, though it often feels like pins and needles or hypersensitivity rather than normal touch. There are good days and bad days when I almost forget my limitations, and others when pain or medical complications remind me of all that's changed. Yet the most profound healing has been internal, transforming from victim to survivor, from someone defined by what happened to someone who actively shapes her own story. 6 months ago, I joined a local advocacy group for spinal cord injury survivors, mentoring newly injured patients. Twice a week, I visit the same rehabilitation center where I once relearned basic life skills. I sit with people overwhelmed by grief and fear, uncertain if life can ever feel good again. I tell them what someone once told me: it doesn't get easier, but you get stronger and find new ways to define what matters. Through this work, I met Thomas, a physical therapist specializing in neurological injuries. What began as a professional connection grew into friendship and now a tentative relationship. He sees me for who I am, not ignoring my disability, but not defining me by it either. With him, I'm learning what healthy love looks like, built on respect and genuine care. As for my family, things remain unresolved. Jason was released from prison 4 months ago after serving his full sentence. He wrote again, asking to meet when I'm ready. I haven't decided if that will ever happen. My parents remain in Florida, living separately from me. I hear secondhand that they've shared a softened version of events, portraying themselves as supportive parents after a tragic accident, but their version no longer controls me. My truth doesn't need their recognition to be valid. My pain doesn't require their acknowledgement to be real. That has been one of the most important lessons. Validation must ultimately come from within. I've also learned that family isn't defined by blood or legal ties, but by those who show up in your hardest moments and stay when it's not easy. My chosen family includes Sarah, the paramedic who ensured I received proper care; Rachel, the nurse who stepped in when no one else would; David, my physical therapist who pushed me to go further than I thought possible; Claire, who guided me through emotional recovery; and now Thomas, who loves me fully, scars and all. Together, they've taught me what it feels like to be believed, supported, and valued for who I am, not for preserving appearances. Last month, I completed my master's degree in educational psychology, specializing in trauma-informed teaching. Next fall, I'll start a new role as a consultant, training educators to support students facing trauma, including family dysfunction. It feels like a way to honor my own journey by creating meaning from my pain. That my paralysis will always be part of my story, as will the family dynamics behind it. But neither defines me. Sometimes, in moments of joy with Thomas or friends, I realize I'm happy not in spite of what happened, but because I've woven it into a larger story of resilience. Other times, pain and grief still surface for my lost abilities, for the fractured family ties, for the safety I'll never fully regain. Even then, I'm no longer alone with my pain. I reach out to those who've earned my trust, accept help without shame, and acknowledge my limitations without letting them define me. If trauma has taught me anything, it's that wounds shape us but need not determine us. Even deep betrayal can spark transformation. Sometimes, it takes being broken to discover your strength. My doctors say I may see small improvements over the next few years, though the biggest gains usually happen in the first 2. I might walk more easily someday, or I might not. Either way, I'll keep building a life that works for me while pushing past limits. I am no longer the woman who entered that birthday party 2 years ago, seeking approval from those who couldn't truly see me. I am someone new, stronger, more authentic, more compassionate, and more aware of both my vulnerability and my strength. That is perhaps the most unexpected gift of all, discovering a self-worth fighting for, believing in, and loving. If your pain is dismissed by those who should protect you, know this: you deserve better. Your experiences are valid. Your suffering matters. There are people who will see you for who you are if You can reach beyond those who refuse to. Have you ever had your pain dismissed by someone who should have believed you? How did you find the strength to trust yourself when others wouldn't? Share your experiences in the comments. Your story might be what someone else needs today. If this message resonated, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might benefit. Thank you for being part of my journey. And remember, healing isn't linear, but it's always possible.